Hi, everyone. This is International TEFL Academy. My name is Erin. I am a Student Affairs Advisor here at International TEFL Academy, and I am with my colleagues, Admissions Advisors and Student Affairs. We're going to be talking to you today a little bit about teaching in Asia. I spent over 3 years in Hong Kong myself. A lot of my colleagues have been all over Asia. We're really excited to talk to you, as well as bring in a little bit of a spin about the Winter Olympics. So we're excited to get some questions from you, so feel free to ask any questions that you'd like. Like I said, I'm going to go ahead and start introducing some of my colleagues. We're going to start over here with Jeff.
Hi, my name is Jeff. I am an admissions advisor, and I help to manage the admissions team a bit here. I taught in South Korea for a little over 2 years, many years back, and I've been here for about 7 years.
Hi guys, I'm Amanda. I am an admissions advisor here at ITA. I am also a member of the ambassador department. I taught in China in the Northeast in Yantai for 2 years. So I'm excited to talk to you guys about China.
Hey everyone, I'm Erika. I am also a Student Affairs Advisor here at ITA. I lived and taught in Bangkok for 4 years, and then I came back to Chicago and taught a little bit here as well, and I've been at ITA for about 1.5 years.
I'm Tyler. I'm an admissions advisor here. I also taught in Hong Kong, where I was lucky enough to meet a friend that wanted to work with me twice, believe it or not. So I now am here and would love to talk about a lot of things.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rose. I'm also in the Student Affairs Department. I taught in South Korea in Seoul for a little over 2 years at a private academy called the Hagwon and worked with elementary age students.
Hi, guys. My name is Andrew. I am an admissions advisor here at ITA as well. Just like Rose, I taught in South Korea, except I was in the southern part of the country in Busan. So we'll kind of talk about the differences there later on, but it's a really great place to be, for sure.
And I'll wrap it up. I'm Chelsea. I taught in the middle of nowhere in Japan, in a city called Kochi for 2 years with the JET program. I taught at 2 different high schools, and after I came back, I joined the team here at ITA. I'm one of the admissions advisors.
Great. Well, thank you guys for joining us. We're really excited. For those of you just tuning in, we're ITA, International TEFL Academy. Today we are talking about teaching in Asia with a spin on the Olympics, because as we know right now, the Winter Olympics are currently happening in Pyeongchang. I hope that's right for those of you who taught in Korea. Okay. I love the Olympics, and what's really exciting is actually the next 2 Olympics are going to be held in Asia. Okay. The next ones are going to be in 2020 in Tokyo, the Summer Olympics, and then right after that, the next Winter Olympics are back in Beijing. Okay, they did the Summer Olympics back in 2008, I think. So if you're interested in the Olympics, interested in Asia, this roundtable discussion is going to be great. All right. So guys, we're going to go ahead and jump into some of our questions. Like I said, let's talk a little bit about sports. So right off the bat, I'm looking at Rose. Rose, you're wearing something interesting. Can you tell me what you're wearing and why are you wearing this? What's the national sport of Korea?
So I think the actual national sport of Korea is Taekwondo, but that's beside the point. When I was living in Korea, I got really, almost to an embarrassing amount, got really into Korean baseball. And I don't know if you haven't been to Korea, you might not be familiar with it. It differs from American baseball in many ways. There is a large emphasis on the audience participation. Each individual player has particular songs that you sing for them. There's cheerleaders, it's a cheermaster. It's this whole big thing, and it's a lot of fun. I became a huge fan of the Doosan Bears, which is the jersey that I'm wearing right now. My favorite player, Kim Hyun-soo, actually got signed with the MLB the year I returned to the United States, so I continue to follow him in the MLB. But yeah, I just got super into it. I even entered a Korean speech contest and did a 5-minute speech on my obsession with the Doosan Bears and my obsession with Korean baseball, and ended up winning in Korean. Ended up winning that. So like I said, I've taken it to a level that is slightly embarrassing, but it's amazing. And I encourage anyone that's in Korea to go to a baseball game for sure.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And instead of hot dogs, you can get
octopus, which is always a nice touch.
The
Fried?
food is interesting.
And you can also bring your own food to the games, which is also different than in the US too. You can save a little money.
That's awesome. That's awesome. How about you, Erica, in Thailand? What is the official sport of Thailand?
So I think it's Muay Thai, which is a form of boxing, and it's actually super, super cool to go watch. I actually tried a Muay Thai class once, and the guy just really took me for a spin. So if you decide to try a Muay Thai class in Thailand, don't wear your glasses, dress appropriately, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. So the fights are cool to watch, and there's a lot of like kind of like a religious type of spiritual element to it as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So kind of switching gears, has anyone here participated in a sport abroad? Were you on a team or do anything while you were teaching abroad?
I played on a soccer team when I was in Busan. It was actually for the city just north of Busan because that's where my friend was playing. So I played on a team, and I would travel to a different city in Korea it was in the second half of when I was there. So I played for just about one season, but it was a lot of fun. It was cool. It was a lot of mix of foreigners, Koreans, mostly Koreans, but our team was mostly foreigners. So it was a good chance to sort of, play against some Korean people.
Awesome. Anyone else?
I played basketball in a basketball league, and then I tried to play pickup soccer games, but was told I couldn't play in the competitive leagues. So it was not good enough for the Hong Kong Soccer League.
Awesome. Really cool. So I'm going to be coming back asking you guys a little bit more about the Winter Olympics in the end, but let's kind of jump into teaching in Asia because obviously that's what we all did and all of us for a couple years, which is pretty cool. So Chelsea, how did you choose Japan or how did Japan choose you?
It was kind of random, actually. I think one day I Googled interesting things to do with an English degree. And the JET program specifically came up. And at the time, I wasn't super sure how to actually go about teaching abroad. And they did a really good job of organizing it and telling me what I needed to do. So I got my TEFL certificate and I applied to it. And it was a really long process, but eventually they told me where I was going to end up. And the city that I was in, I Googled it and it only came up in India. Because it doesn't exist in Japan. And when I taught there and I traveled around, people would ask, what are you doing here? I'm an English teacher. Where? And I said, coaching. And they're like, why? But I loved it. It was a lot of fun. I got to work with high school students and I have no regrets. I had a fantastic time in Japan.
That's awesome. So switching gears over to Amanda, you kind of have an interesting story of where you taught, how did you find your job, and where did you teach in China?
So I taught in China. I ended up teaching in a Korean high school in China. It's an hour away by flight from Seoul. So a lot of Koreans go over to China to study there. It helps them get into college. I found the job actually through Googling things online. I did not know very much, similar to Chelsea, and started Googling. And if you Google online, you find lots of recruiters. Some of them are legit, some of them are not, which was my experience. My high school was great. It was super fun and interesting to get the Korean side and the Chinese side. However, I didn't get a choice of where I was teaching or really any kind of decision of how I was teaching or my hours or my contract. So that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, but it didn't ruin my experience.
Well, that's good. I'm glad that you still had a good experience as well. And something here at International TEFL Academy, we actually do provide job search guidance. We don't do any sort of placement because we want you to be able to choose where you want to go, see what your hours are going to be. And so we actually have two alumni sitting with us today. Both Rose and Andrew took our online course and then went abroad to teach in Korea. So can you kind of tell me what your process was like with the online course, finding a job?
Yeah, sure. So while I was taking my online course, I used one of the recruiters that ITA recommends. We have a list of preferred recruiters that we know are good, that our students have had good experiences with, me being one of those students. So I interviewed with her, just kind of, she was great. She really got a feel for what I wanted, what kind of where I wanted to be, what age students I wanted to, to work with, what was really important to me with this whole experience and what my job was. And then from there, she lined up some interviews for me, and some in Seoul, some in Busan, and she was more than helpful. And from there, I pretty much just took it myself, and ended up signing with a school in Busan, and that was it. Like it was very, very smooth. I didn't have to worry about being at a school where something's going to go wrong because of the help I had with ITA, and I knew that I could trust this recruiter who I was working with.
Fantastic. And Rose, I know that you kind of utilized all of the resources here at ITA as well, starting with the Student Affairs Department, which you are now in. Can you kind of tell us about that experience?
Yeah, so what I think is really nice about ITA's job search guidance, and like Erin said, speaking from someone who's used it as a student, I love that they provide you with all the resources that you need to be able to do it on your own successfully. So like Erin emphasized and like Amanda talked about, you're not getting placed. You're not having decisions made for you. You're just being provided with all of the resources that you need to make appropriate decisions while you're being well informed. So when I was working with Student Affairs, they had mentioned, hey, here are some recruiters that we recommend, like Andrew said, and I looked into a couple of them. I even did a little bit of research and looked into some additional recruiters that weren't on the list. And what I found is that you'll tell a recruiter what you're looking for, and they'll either say, yes, we have it, or no, we don't. And just because they don't have it doesn't mean that another recruiter's not going to have it. They'll tell you, oh, you can't find that in Seoul. And I originally came back to my student affairs advisor and said, oh, the recruiter says that they can't find this in Seoul. And my student affairs advisor, being knowledgeable and amazing, was like, well, just so you know, each recruiter has a specific group of schools that they work with. So maybe they don't specifically have what you're looking for, but don't take what that recruiter says as truth for the entire city. So continue to look at other recruiters and work with a multitude to make sure that you're getting you're being exposed to all the different opportunities that you can. And so I really appreciated that sort of insight, along with a lot more during the entire process of finding work.
Great,
Yeah.
Great. So for those of you tuning in, like I said, we're International TEFL Academy. We're doing a roundtable discussion on teaching English in Asia. I'm going to kind of switch gears to some funny moments in classes because we all know that they happen. My good friend Tyler over here has a pretty funny story about what happened in class.
Yeah. So when I was in school, I was known, I guess, as a student that would kind of like make comments and side comments and stuff. And the teacher would always yell at me, be like, Tyler, if you have something to share with the class. It was always embarrassing. I had to like come up with something and lie. So I thought I would bring that to Hong Kong. And it was a kindergarten class, and I'm up there teaching, and I hear these, two students, these two girls, they're like whispering and laughing. And I go, okay, Cherry, here's my moment. If you have something to say, you need to say it for the whole class. Like, what are you guys talking about? And she stood up and she was like, well, my friend Hannah here thinks that you're handsome. And I was like, oh, this is a nice comment. She goes, however, I think you're too short and too weak to be handsome. So I said, you're not. And I went home. I was like, that one. So don't ever ask them what they're talking about. That's all.
You're perfect as you are, Tyler.
That's all I needed today. Thank you.
All right, on my left, Erika also has a pretty funny moment that happens in class. Disclaimer, something gross might be happening.
Yes, this is a poop story. So I taught kindergarten as well. And this class was about maybe 30, 35 students. And it was, I was teaching, I had a Thai teacher and then an assistant Thai teacher as well. And I was teaching at the front, and I came to realize, due to my senses, that it smelled like poop. And I was like, oh gosh, okay, well, someone clearly pooped themselves. So I broke it down for the kids, and I was like, guys, who pooped? And they just sat there, and they were sitting on the ground, and I was like, whatever's happening in there isn't going to be good because you're sitting on the ground. And I was like, who pooped? No one says anything. Okay, if you pooped, just go. No one moves. Okay. So then the Thai teacher and the assistant teacher just start going up to the kids and just checking the bums to figure out who pooped. And the kids were all mortified because it was like, I didn't poop. And the Thai teacher was like, I have to check. And so they found the one that pooped, and when he stood up, a mess was made. So I was like, everybody outside, get outside, because we had to clean it. So, Thai teacher takes the kid to the bathroom to clean the child, and I'm there with the other Thai teacher trying to clean the classroom. The kids are like on a rampage in the hallway, like, Papa! And then we get it all cleaned up. They come back in, and then I think it might have been like a day or two later, I was looking at my phone, and the kids had taken my cell phone, gone out into the hallway, and their rampage was actually just them taking selfies of each other. So I had like all these cute selfies of like these monsters just creating. They were like on benches. It was really cute.
That's awesome. And you still have those pictures today?
Absolutely, yeah.
That's a funny moment with a nice keepsake at the end. Very good. Good. So switching gears kind of again, obviously there's some amazing things about teaching abroad. We all know that. Jeff, what was one of the best moments that happened while you were teaching?
Best moments while I was teaching? I feel like every day, especially because I was teaching kids anywhere from 5 years old to 11 years old, there would be a student that would make your heart melt. And so sometimes they would say things that you taught them. So I don't know if there's one specific moment, but knowing that you had an impact on a 6-year-old and you clearly taught them something, because there's no way that anyone else would have said a certain phrase. Having moments like that and getting to experience that and seeing that you had that impact was pretty awesome.
I love those little moments. I remember I'd say, oh my, in class. So I had a 3-year-old that just kept saying, oh my, when anything would ever happen. And I learned I needed to tone that down. I still do it, but oh my. So those little moments are definitely something that you will always treasure. And so with that, obviously, teaching isn't always glamorous. It's not roses. Sometimes it's poop. Amanda, was there any situations that were tough or a rough situation while you were teaching, or just teaching in China in general?
So specifically teaching in my classroom, of course, when you're teaching students who don't speak English as their first language, there can be a lot of frustrations. And I remember I was teaching Korean students, and I had little ones. They were about 5 years old, and the cutest things. And we were singing songs in one of the after-school programs, and this student couldn't get the song. So all of the students were singing, but they just couldn't pick up those words in English. And tears start forming, and it breaks your heart because they're trying and the other kids are getting it, and this poor little girl just couldn't get the words, and tears ensued. And it's then hard to manage the students that are doing well and then the student who is breaking down, and it breaks your heart when you see them wanting to try and failing.
Definitely. And so obviously outside of the classroom, there are some tough situations just when you are in a foreign country, language barriers, visa, like paperwork, things like that. I know Chelsea had quite the time figuring out all of her paperwork.
The visa, I think for me was one thing, but I think my most challenging paperwork kind of bureaucracy thing was I actually got a driver's license in Japan. And I had only expected to be there for a year, and on a year you can drive on a international license. But I loved it so much that I stayed a second year, and like I said, I was in the middle of nowhere, so I had a car. I learned how to drive on the opposite side of the road. And after a year, they said you have to get a Japanese driver's license. And the test is done completely in Japanese, and they don't tell you why you fail. So it's not a test of driving. It's just this random test of memorization around a course where you have to memorize 10 minutes of driving. And it's like, drive straight 30 meters, then turn left, then go through this like thing that has chimes and don't hit any of the chimes. And, you had to turn your blinker on. And when you got in the car, it was like, you have to put your seatbelt on and then check your passenger, or else you get points docked off in this really specific way. So I failed it 4 times. And every time they give you they called it 1-point advice, like literally in English, 1 point. And one of my 1-point advices once was just to relax. And this was like on the 3rd time I failed. And I was like, I can't relax. The fourth time I passed it, and I was just like hysterically crying. And while I'm like getting my little picture taken and getting the license, I see two of my colleagues who are Canadian and British just filling out paperwork because for their countries you can just transfer it. But all the Americans, because all of our states have different regulations for how you pass it, they're like, we don't know. You guys just have to do the driver's test. And I was so angry, but I kept it. I still have it in my little keepsake box, and it's one of my most prized possessions. It was very difficult to get. I earned it. I earned it.
More than times the charm.
Yeah.
Yes, in Japan at least. Awesome. Well, yeah, some really great stories. Guys, like I said, if you are just tuning in, we're International TEFL Academy. We are a TEFL certification school. We have over 20,000 alumni every year. We teach and certify over 5,000 alumni. We have classes online, on site here in Chicago. That's where our headquarters is. Like I said, we have 2 alumni right here. We also have over 20 locations around the world. If you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat box. We are going to be doing some questions in just a little bit. But like I said, if you're just tuning in, we're talking about teaching in Asia. So Jeff, kind of switching back to teaching, what is one tip or give some advice for teaching in Korea?
Well, for the teaching aspect of things, something that I had to really learn and experience when working with children, one of the keys is patience, because you can't. Every kid learns at their own pace, and they, are on their own timeline, and you can't force things with kids. And so, if there's one thing that I would suggest for people to embrace for teaching children and just teaching abroad in general, patience. And that's something. If there's one thing that I learned a lot when I was teaching abroad, it was the effectiveness of patience.
Definitely, that's really important to have, especially when teaching kids, even if English is their first language. So imagine these students are, native speakers of a different language. Patience is really important. How about for you, Amanda, about teaching in China? What's one tip of advice you'd give?
For teaching in China, I would say keep an open mind as far as teaching goes. There's just lots of different experiences. In the classroom, you kind of have to learn about traditions and culture so that you are not saying something that goes against some of their beliefs or some of their traditions. Obviously, you want to learn about maybe some of those things before you go so that you don't offend either students or offend some of the teachers as well.
Definitely. Great. And Tyler, I'm kind of scared to ask, what is one tip of advice that you'd give to those who want to teach in Hong Kong?
Just be okay with the kids being smarter than you. I mean, that's okay. I gave a lesson on dinosaurs once. I walked out of that classroom with so many notes of things I learned. It's incredible. Don't worry about it. They know their stuff.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. All right, guys. So it's kind of debate time. So first, I'm going to start off with these 3 in South Korea. Okay, we have 2 who taught in Seoul and 1 who taught in Busan. Which one's better?
Well,
Seoul.
It's as simple as that.
Moving on. Next question.
So it's clearly the top choice. It's the largest city in South Korea. It's got so much energy. It's a city that never sleeps. There's
some people like to sleep though. So,
Oh, you're saying in Busan you slept the whole time?
it's
on the beach under the sun, the whole time.
A very cosmopolitan
That's not bad for
city.
your health.
Just a place I really enjoyed living in, and then I also know people that visited Seoul really enjoyed their experience there.
I obviously agree. I grew up in a really small town. Living in Seoul was kind of my first foray into city life, which at the time didn't really seem like that big of a deal. And I actually didn't realize it until way after the fact. But having Seoul as my first big city I kind of got spoiled by it because it's huge. Like Jeff said, it's huge, but it's incredibly safe, like ridiculously safe. Just like you leave your cell phone at a restaurant 3 days later, like they're going to have it for you. Different things like that. Crime's really low. the subway system is so extensive. So you're in this big city, but where I was actually living and teaching, I was one of the few foreigners. So I also felt like I was getting immersed in the culture. I didn't feel like I was necessarily around a lot of expats. However, like 2 subway stops away, I could go to either Itaewon or Hongdae, and those were like great places to hang out with a lot of expats and a lot of different places to, have fun and meet new people. So there's just so many different options within that city. You can get hole-in-the-wall Korean traditional food that's fantastic. You can go and get, food from South Africa and food from Hungary and Bulgaria and all this. So you just have everything at your fingertips. That's what I really loved about Seoul.
And a rebuttal?
Yeah, no, and I'm not going to sit here and bash Seoul because Seoul is an incredible city. I mean, I spent weekends, taking the train just 2.5 hours from Busan to Seoul. I mean, it's a very small country. You can literally go from one end to the other in about, 2-3 hours. But Busan's just a little bit smaller. It's still a city of like 3 million people, so it's not like it's a small city by any stretch. And you have the ocean. I think this is one of the biggest parts of Busan, at least that I liked, is that you have the beach and you've got the ocean. The beaches are great. It's beautiful. People hang out there. There's a lot of bars and restaurants, sort of in these neighborhoods by the beach. And it's just not quite as overwhelming. I mean, you look at the subway map of Seoul and you're like, holy crap, this is like so much. And Busan's is just a bit smaller. So it's not that it's a small city, but it's just toned down a bit. And you can always go visit Seoul anytime, and I think vice versa as well. So, either wherever you decide to be, I think it's important that you do visit other parts of Korea because it does have a lot to offer. So that was kind of my easy way out there. But
no, I agree. I agree with you. I did
Yeah,
a lot of exploring within the country itself. Some of the islands, some of the different areas. I spent time in Busan. They have a great beer, galmegi brewing in Busan. So,
craft beer comes to Korea.
Yeah.
Well, I can't decide, so I'll let the audience decide. I'm going to be partial. All right. So in about 30 seconds, guys, I want you to tell me why someone should choose to teach in your country. I want you to sell me and the people watching. All right. And we're going to start with Thailand.
She's a Thailand.
Well, Thailand, I mean, a lot of people watching this have probably already decided that they're going to Thailand because it's like by far the most popular destination I talk to people about on the phone right now. That might be because of me. The thing about Thailand is you have the beaches, you have the cities, but the beaches are pristine. The islands are unbelievable. You have scuba diving, which people do. I didn't. You can sit on a beach for hours and hours and hours. People will bring you food. You can eat the most amazing seafood you've ever had. And then you jump on an overnight train or a plane and you're in the mountains. And all throughout Thailand, you just have this consistency of a culture that is the most beautiful thing I have ever experienced. Thai people are the most generous people I've ever met. They will invite you into their homes. They will cook for you. You will like make signs at them because you can't speak to them, but you'll have the most beautiful friendship regardless. I spent 4 years there. I was originally planning on spending 6 months, and I think that says something. Also, you can get paid a good amount of money. I was able to pay back my student loans while I was teaching. Mind you, I was on whatever lowest plan humanly possible at the time. I'm not going to make a ton of cash, but I made enough where I could travel, do cool things, and meet some amazing people. If you dig like a kind of a Rasta, like reggae vibe, chill, Thailand is for you. And really just whoever you are, Thailand is probably for you.
30 seconds, huh?
You got something to say?
Yeah, I'm going the exact same time.
All right. Well, then I guess that's good. Why Hong Kong, Tyler?
Well, let me tell you, Aaron, if you're anything like me, or maybe you're probably not, but it's very important to have options and choices, like whatever it is you do. Maybe you love the beach, but do you want to spend every day at the beach? Like taking a 2-hour ride to this huge city? I mean, that's cool, but that's 2 hours. Thailand, the beaches are pristine, but you were quite away from them, right? Or overnight train to the mountains. Hong Kong, you can literally within probably an hour, you're at, I'll go 30 minutes. You're at the beach, you can surf, you can hike the mountains. You can spend all day swimming. You can go to the islands. You can do cultural things if you want to go see Buddha temples. You want to go see all of that. You want to go get pizza. You want to go get Mexican food. It's all right there. Great. They have a cat cafe, which is pretty amazing. I think it's called like Meow 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 or like Meow or something like that. But basically, you go and like you can just speak to the cats. You're like meow, and it's crazy. So they have like literally everything you need. You don't have to leave the city. You can get around Asia. It's fantastic. I Google it.
Erin, can we get a fact check? Facebook, can we get a fact check on the name of that?
It's something like that.
Awesome. Chelsea.
Well, if you're
why
into
Japan?
cat cafe, per capita, Japan has the most.
Fact check that.
But
Probably true.
I think, a lot of these countries are similar in that you can do a lot of things. There's beaches, there's mountains. They're all in the same, part of the world, so there's similar topography. For Japan, I think something that makes it different is the culture. It just has such an interesting, unique culture, and living there changed the way that I saw things. Like it was like this big picture thing. Japanese people are so appreciative of so many things. They're appreciative, if you're in a store, they're appreciative of you as their customer. And you get this insane level of customer service that just spoiled me rotten. And when I came back, I was like, why is this, person being so rude to me at the airport? And they were just being a regular person, but they weren't like, you go to the convenience store and order, like get a burrito, and you'd hand it to them and they'd be like, is it okay if I heat this up for you, ma'am? And you're like, well, sure. And then they're like, is it okay if I cut the corner of it? And then they'll like, jazz it all up, and they'll give you all these things with it, and they'll like apologize for it taking too long and like bring it to you in your car and just do crazy stuff. And I just, you felt very, very appreciative of that. And then it's like all year round when the seasons change, they're so appreciative of their country and what they have. And they'll go out and look at cherry blossoms, and then the leaves change in the, in the fall season. My landlord made me take a day off of work so he could bring me out to like the most beautiful part of the area that had all the fall leaves changing, and like we had this beautiful meal that you just spend like 3 hours eating, and it's all arranged. It looks like art. It doesn't even look like food. And having those experiences just made me appreciative of being able to travel and speaking English. Like that was what allowed me to go have that experience, that I got to go teach it. And I really loved that, how it made me so appreciative of life and like the little things and just slowing things down a little bit.
Definitely. I kind of want to go teaching.
Yeah, that was great.
She went over the 30 seconds to tell you why.
And Amanda, why China?
Saving the best for last, right? One word, 2 words, street food. So in China, they have the best street food, and everything comes on a stick. So meat on a stick, bread on a stick, fruit on a stick, potatoes on a stick. Beer in a bag, so you can walk with the beer, noodles in a bag. Everything is mobile, and it's everywhere, and it's ridiculously inexpensive, and it's delicious. So I think that alone you should go to China for. But going along kind of with what Chelsea said, as far as the way that it makes you look at the world. The Chinese people are very much about mind, body, and spirit. And I really like the way that they integrate that in their daily lives with Tai Chi, and just the way they look at things. They integrate that in the school systems and how you teach and how you speak with children. So I really liked that kind of slower, more paying attention to who you are kind of vibe that China offers.
Awesome. Well, I hope for those watching, you guys have an idea of what it's like teaching in these countries. I'm ready to go to all of them, even back to Hong Kong.
I have one quick thing about Korea, just because it seemed like a popular topic. There are cat cafes in Korea, whatever. But guess what? We also had raccoon cafes and sheep cafes and
Sheep? You said
yeah,
sheep.
sheep and like wedding dress cafes. If you're like the type of person who wants to go in and just like wear a wedding dress while you sip your tea. I mean, they have every type of cafe.
Is this just called an alley? Like, where are you going to eat?
It's a cafe.
Throwing out wedding dresses.
Don't listen to him. Anyways, they have every type of cafe that you ever want. They have like 50 Hello Kitty cafes. I mean, if that's your thing. But they've got everything. So if we're talking about cafes, I'm just saying.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap up pretty soon, but I said that we would get back to the Olympics, obviously to give nod to the Pyeongchang Olympics and the Olympics that will be in Tokyo in the summer in 2020 and in Beijing, the Winter Olympics in Beijing in 2022. So one word, Jeff, what's your favorite Winter Olympic sport?
Snowboarding.
All right, Amanda.
Curling.
Ooh, okay.
Snowboarding for
Snowboarding.
Oh man, yeah, the half pipes.
Okay. All right.
I would say the ice skating.
I'd say some sort of skiing where they're skiing like 1,000,000 miles an hour down the hill. Like on
Speed
ice sheet.
skiing.
Just like
I like the one that's called the biathlon, I think, is what we call the Norwegian drive-by.
Yeah.
Where they have to like ski and then stop and shoot things, and then they like ski more and shoot things. And that's a weird
That's
sport. I like watching it.
Pretty impressive one.
Yeah.
I'm partial to ice skating as well. Great. Well, guys, thank you so much for taking the time out of work to come talk to me and come talk to our audience. As a reminder, we are International TEFL Academy. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you guys have any questions, we are going to be saving this video. Feel free to ask questions. Or I recommend visiting our website, internationalteflacademy.com. If you'd like to learn more about teaching in Asia and connect with some of the advisors that you listened to today, please give us a call, visit our website. It will be appearing right below me right now. It's magic. Woo. All right. And in exciting news, check out our Instagram at INT TEFL Academy, because on Saturday, actually, we're having one of our alumni take over it at the Olympics. So you can kind of see they're going to be experiencing, I think, snowboarding and some of the other events. So stay tuned. Again, thanks you guys again. Thank you guys. My colleagues are amazing. And yeah, see you
You're
guys
amazing,
later.
Aaron.
Great job.